Hello everyone and welcome back to Just Finish Coding. I'm Sriram and this video is part 10 of our Geometry Dash game on Scratch 3. Now in case you've not watched parts 1 to 9, I will leave a card for you right here. So in parts 1 to 9 we did a lot of code. In this video we'll be completing the player explosion, which means when a player either touches a visible or an invisible obstacle, he'll basically be exploding into shards all over the place and we'll restart the game. So that's the general idea and let's get right into it. So first of all, I'm going to make sure that we start right at the beginning again. So you can remove that set x to negative 2300 and set it back to negative 152. So now when we hit the green flag, you can see that we are back at the beginning. But you also notice that when we go through, the visible obstacles in this case, the game really doesn't stop. And the reason for this is because I haven't done anything within the player's Y engine. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to drag this a little bit up. And just like I did for my air engine, I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to have this inner condition, right? Oops, that was not necessary. I'm going to have this within an if-then condition. So grab an if-then from the control section. Say if we're touching either the visible obstacles or the invisible obstacles, in either of the two cases, we'll simply be setting game over to be yes. So now if we just do that and we test it out, you can see that when we touch those obstacles, the game basically stops, and that's great. That's what we want. We can also make sure that once the game stops, we go through a series of broadcast messages, because we need to give our other sprites a clue as to what we're doing, and that reminds me to actually bring these things up. I'm going to bring these right before in the second row so that I can manipulate them easily. Maybe I'll actually bring them into the first row after the player. So let me get explosion and player. I'm not sure what I call this. Yeah, player remains right here. All right, let's get back into the player, and we want to send these two sprites a bunch of messages. So we're going to do that with 3 different messages, okay? So first of all, we will be, once we are out of this loop, actually let me make sure I have space to do this, because this is going to be pretty congested. So let me drag all this down so that I have more space. So drag this down and drag this down as well. So let's put this right here. And now this should give us plenty of space, right, to continue. So let me zoom in now. First of all, once we are out, I'm going to assume here that we lost the game. When we're getting into the finish line, we'll also need to check if we won the game or not. But at this point, let's assume we lost. So we'll be first of all broadcasting a message called player death and wait. So in this message, all the sprites go to the player and they're ready to do their next thing. So let me call this player death. So broadcast player death and wait. Now once we're done with this, we can use our counter variable here. So we can set C, so set C to be 1, and we can repeat 20 different times, okay? So we can repeat 20 times, and within each one of those things, we will say broadcast and wait, and you can change this player death to be a new message. I'm going to call this death tick, okay? So this is going to be the tick for our animation where all the shards end up flying around and our player basically turns into a green blob. So once we've done broadcasting death tick 20 times, we'd want all of these things to disappear. And to do that, I'll be broadcasting another new message. And this time I will call this death end, okay? So I'm being a little bit specific here. And once we're done with all this, we want the game to restart. So we want the player to be right back and we want the game to start once again. So to do that, we simply need to broadcast the 2 messages that we broadcasted initially, which is broadcast init and wait, and then we broadcast start game and wait. That's going to be pretty much all we need to do within our player. And now we can get into the explosion sprite to continue. So head over to explosion. Let's start with a when I receive init. So say when I receive init. Here I'll be setting my ghost effect to be, slightly something. So I'll be setting it to be 40. Make sure you change color to ghost because ghost is the transparency. And I'll also be setting my size at the beginning to be 100, but we'll be slowly growing, right? Not slowly, we'll be growing pretty fast, but it's going to be in each tick. After we're done with this, we can hide because at the beginning of the game, we do not want this to be shown. Now you can head over to events once again, and you can see first when we receive a player death. This is the first message that indicates that we should get to the player. So head over to motion now and grab a go to something. It's generally go to random position at the start. You can change random position to player, and once we've done going to the player, we can simply say show. Now we can get into the animation. So we can say when I receive death tick, this is basically the explosion. So we're just getting larger and larger. So say when I receive game tick, we change our size. So head over to looks, say change, where's that? Yep, change size by 40 each time. So we're getting considerably bigger. And we also change ghost effect by 7. Okay, so change ghost effect by 7. So we're slowly, getting more and more transparent until we can no longer see the sprite at all. And after we're done with all of this, when we receive death end, this time we will simply be hiding the sprite. So nothing more than that. Now let's head over to the player remains. So this is going to be slightly more complicated because here we're going to have a wide variety of clones. Actually, I'm going to test this quickly just to show you how this goes. So when we do hit the thing, you can see that boom, right? That was a player getting killed, and we restart the game. All right, that works nice. So let's head over to the player remains. Let's start with a when I receive init. So when we start the game, here I will make sure I delete all the existing clones, just like I did for the other sprites. So say repeat 1, you can say delete this clone. All right. Next, we can make sure to hide the sprite because we wouldn't want the player remains to show initially when the game starts. We can also create a new clone variable because this is going to have a bunch of clones. So set it as a private variable for the sprite only and say clone with a question mark to indicate it's a Boolean variable. Let us set clone to be initially yes, and this is where we're going to create our clones. So I'll be creating 20 different clones. So head over to control, say repeat 20, and you can say repeat 20, and you can simply say create clone of myself. All right. Actually, it makes a little bit more sense doing this within a block so that this gets over faster. So just say init clones, there we go, run without screen refresh. You can put this right here and you can drop init clones here. All right. After we're done creating the clones, we can simply set the clone variable back to no because now it's going to refer to the sprite and not any one of those clones. Fairly straightforward. And now when we start as a clone, it's important to define a whole bunch of things. So I'm going to set initially, I'm going to make a new variable called vel for velocity. And this is basically the speed. So I should have probably called it speed, but I'm going to call it velocity. So let's start with when I start as a clone, grab it from the control category. So when we do start as a clone, I'm going to first of all set my size to be something variable. So I'm going to use a pick random block, and we're going to be using this block quite a bit of time. So keep this here and keep duplicating it. So we'll be setting the size to be somewhere between 80 and 120. So this is going to give it, a little bit of depth and interest to the game. It's going to look a little bit better. So we'll set the size to be something random within that range. We'll also be setting a ghost effect to be somewhere between slightly transparent to quite transparent. So we can say set ghost effect to pick a random. Here we can say 30 to 60. So 30 is at the less end, it's basically opaque, and 60 it's already quite transparent. So next we can also point in a variable direction since we want the shards or the player remains to be coming all over, right? We want it to go in different directions. So we can say point in direction. Here once again, you can put a pick random. So here we can say negative 180 to positive 180 because we wouldn't want the player shards to be going into the ground. That's going to look a bit odd. So anywhere above the ground, which is going to be anywhere up here. So negative 180 to positive 180. And finally, we can also set our velocity variable. So set vel to pick random once again. Here we'll be setting it to from anywhere between 5 to 8. So those are going to be all the initializations that we will do. Let's grab when we receive player death now. So this is the first message, right? So when we receive player death, this is where we basically go to the player. So you can grab an if then first of all and an equal to from the operators. And first of all, we will be checking if the clone variable is set to yes. In case it's set to no, then it means that it's the sprite itself and we do not want the sprite to do anything. So in case clone is yes, then we'll do pretty much the same thing as we did within the explosion. We will go to the player and then we will show ourselves. Very, very simple and straightforward. Now, when we do receive death tick, this is where we do our animation. So head over to events. You can grab a when we receive a death tick, I think. Yep, that's what I called it. Each time we receive a death tick, we'll be once again checking if our clone variable is set to yes. In case it is set to yes, then we will move velocity steps, and we'll also be making the sprite, or this clone to be more specific, more transparent every single time. So we can say head over to looks and say change ghost effect, not by 25, that's too fast, but we can change it by 5. So eventually this is going to go transparent. Now we can also make sure that when we receive a death end, we are deleting all the clones that exist. Now you can optionally say hide, but when we receive in it, we're going to delete them anyway. So why not do it right now? And that's going to be all we need to do. So I'm going to hit the green flag to see if this works out. Boom, when we touch that, you can see that everything does explode. And that's beautiful. Now you might have noticed that the player doesn't hide, and we could do that within, we could do that in our, when we do receive, once we are out of that loop. But I'll be doing that in the next video along with a bunch of other stuff that relates to the special coins. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like, and also don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.